Nathan rebukes David. The Lord sent Nathan to David. Where he came to him, he said, there was two men in a certain town, one rich and another poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle. But the poor man had nothing except one little lamb he had bought. He raised it, he grew up with him, and drank and his children. He shared his food, drank from the cup, and even slept in his own arm. It was like a thought. Now a traveler came to the rich man. The rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle, very near for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the evil lamb that belonged to the poor man. He prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as sure as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that ram 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity. That Nathan said to David, you are the man! This is what the Lord, God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, to deliver you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you, and gave master's wives in your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, why I would have given you even more. Why despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? He struck down Uriah, Hittite, with his sword, and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of Amorites. Therefore, the sword will be never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah, the Hittite, to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity before your very eyes. I will take advice and give to one who is close to you. He will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but now this thing will be broad daylight before all Israel. Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan replied, the Lord has taken away your sin, you are not going to die because of doing this. You have shown utter contentment for the Lord. The son born to you, he will die. Boom, boom, boom. After Nathan had gone, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had born to David. He became ill. David pled with the God for the child. He fasted and spent nights lying in sackcloth on the ground. The elders of his household stood before him to get up from the ground, but he refused. He would not eat any food. On the seventh day, the child died. David's attendants were afraid to tell him that was dead. When they died, when the child was living, he wouldn't listen to us until we spoke to him. How can we now tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate. David noticed his attendants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. The child dead, he replied. Yes, he is dead. David got from the ground. After he washed the lotion on his clothes, he went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went to his own house, and at his request, they served him food and he ate. Attendants asked him, why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and well. Now the child is dead, you get up and eat? And he answered, while the child was still alive, I fasted and well. I died. Who knows? May God maybe get gracious to me and let the child live. But now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him and he will not return to me. Then David confronted his wife, Sheba. He went to her and made love to her. She gave birth a son and named him Solomon. The Lord loves him, and because the Lord loved him, he sent word through Nathan the prophet and named him Jebiah. Meanwhile, Jobab fought against the rabbi, the Amorites, and captured the warriors city. Jobab sent messages to David, saying, we have fought against Rabba and taken its water supply. Now we must muster the troops and besiege the city and capture it. Otherwise, I will take the city and be named after me. So David mustered the entire army and went onto Rabba, attacked, and captured it. David took the crown of the king's head. It was placed on his whole head. It was rated a town of gold and was set with precious stones. David took a great quantity of plunder from the city and brought out people who were there, consigning them to labor with saws and iron picks and axes. He made them all workmen, and David did this to all the Amorite child. Then he and his entire army returned to Jerusalem. Now we'll be reading the meaning. As a prophet, Nathan was required to confront sin, even the sin of a king. It would take great courage, skill, and tact to speak to David in a way that make him aware of his wrong action. When you have to confront someone with unpleasant news, pray for courage, skill, and tact. If you want that person to respond constructively, think through what you are doing to say. How can you present your message may be as pointed as what you say? Seasoning words of wisdom. It was a year later, and by then, David had become so insensitive to his own sin, he didn't realize he was a villain in Nathan's story. The equalities was condemned in others are often our own character flaws, which friends, associates, or family members you find easy to criticate and hard to accept. Instead of trying to change, ask God to help you understand the theory and see your own flaws more clearly. You may discover that in condemning yourself, others, you have condemning them yourself. The predictions in these verses became true. As David murdered Uriah and stole his wife, murder was a constant threat in David's family. His household rebelled against him. His wives were given to another public view. First child by Bathsheba died. If David had known the painful consequences of his sin, he might have not pursued the pleasures of the moment. During this incident, David wrote Psalms 51, giving value insight to his character and offering hope for us as well. No matter how miserable guilt makes you feel or how terrible you have sinned, you can pour out your heart to God and seek his forgiveness, as David did. There is forgiveness for us when we sin. David also wrote to express the joy he felt after he was forgiven. David confessed and repented of his sin, 12:13. But God's judgment was that his child would die. The consequence of David's sin was irreversible. Sometimes an apology isn't enough. When God forgives us and restores our relationship with him, he doesn't eliminate all the consequences of our wrongdoing. You may be tempted to say, but if this is wrong, I can always apologize to God. But we must remember that we may set into motion events with irreversible consequences. Why did this child have to die? This was not a judgment for the child to be conceived out of the wedlock, but a judgment for David on his for his sin. David and Sheba deserved to die, but God spared their lives until the child said. God still had work for David to do in the building of the kingdom. The child's death was a horrible punishment for David and Bathsheba to heal. It was also possible that the child's rib, God would have been dishonored among Israel's pagan neighbors. What would they have thought of a God who rewards murder and adultery by giving a king a new hair? A baby's death is tragic, but despising God brings death to entire nations. When God readily forgave David's sin, he did not regret it all other consequences. David, a prophet of great wisdom, bravery, and obedience, and rewards. He had three crucial messages. After three critical times in David's life, he told David that his son would build a temple and that David's dynasty would last forever. He confronted David with his sin of adultery. He helped David praise Solomon on the throne. David did not return to dwell on his sin. He returned to God, and God forgave him. Forgave him, opening the way to begin life and new. Even in the name of God, through Solomon, Judea, that whatever meaning was by God, Lord, was a reminder of God's grace. When we return to God, accept His forgiveness, change our ways, He gives us fresh strength to fear forgiveness, as David did. Admit your sin to God and turn to Him. Then move ahead with a new, fresh approach to life. Perhaps the most bitter experience is the death of one child, but comfort in such difficult circumstances. Solomon was the fourth son of David and Bathsheba. Therefore, several years passed between the death of the first child and Solomon's birth. Bathsheba may have been grieving over the first child's death. That is it for me. Today, now.
Awesome! Awesome!
Thank you for coming. To Daily Bread to read. Thank you.